June 10th Planning Commission meeting. Quorum and agenda was properly posted.
Correct.
And we just pledge allegiance. Oh, roll call first. Roll call first, I'm sorry.
Kyle Broom,
Here.
Rob Houghton, Phyllis Jones Morrison,
Here.
Fred Schultz,
Here.
Rob Weisey, absent and excused, John Williams.
Right here.
Okay.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any public appearances? I guess not. All right. Guess we'll do introductions, I guess. I know some of us did some already, but we'll just start around right up to in alphabetical order.
All right, Kyle Broom.
Pat McAfee.
Phyllis Jones Morrison.
Fred Schultz.
John Williams.
Lee Boucher.
Matt Peasy.
Aaron Ruth.
Smooth. All right. And now we're going to be presentation by the staff, an overview of planning concepts and responsibilities of the planning commissioners for the purpose of providing orientation to our new members.
I apologize to Kyle and Pat who had to sit through this once already a couple of weeks ago, but maybe I'll throw some quiz questions out at you and make sure you were paying attention. With so many new members, it just seemed like an appropriate time to go through some of this information. Not sure what the background is of the new members. Some of this maybe stuff you already know, maybe some of it's new, but hopefully it's at least a valuable review. Just run through some of the concepts that you'll likely be working with during your time here on the Plan Commission. The first topic we'll talk about is the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plans are defined by state statute. There are certain elements that every plan has to have according to the statute. That's issues and opportunities, housing, transportation, utilities and community facilities, agricultural, natural and cultural resources, economic development, intergovernmental cooperation, land use, and implementation. A plan can have any other element you want, but this is the minimum that you have to cover. The way we deal with that, basically each of these is a separate chapter in our plan. Beginning in January of 2010, most land use decisions have to be considered consistent with the comprehensive plan. So anything related to zoning or land divisions, things of that nature, need to be consistent. That's done to encourage governments to actually use the plan once it's done. It, at least to some extent, makes the plan binding. Consistency was later defined as it furthers or at least does not contradict the objectives, goals, and policies in the comprehensive plan. So basically anything we approve that's part of the zoning ordinance, that could be a site plan, a conditional use permit, anything would at least have to be consistent or at least not in contradiction with our comp plan. We didn't print out the entire comp plan for you. It is on our website. If you go to the main village homepage, there are some blue tabs along the left-hand side. If you click planning, you'll see links to each individual chapter. If you would like a hard copy, I'm sure we could arrange to get you one, but it is there online. Because of some of the limitations of our website, the images are not always the highest quality. If you want higher quality maps, either digitally or hard copy, again, just let me know and we can get those to you. We usually do an amendment process annually. Some of those are bigger than others. Sometimes it's just little housekeeping items. This year, it's going to be a little bit bigger just because we have so many new board members, new plan commission members, and a brand new CDA. We're looking for input from all those different bodies that I guess we'll see how big the changes are to the plan based on the input we get from all of you and from those other bodies. But we'll talk about that in a little more detail with some of the later agenda items. We have a zoning ordinance. What is zoning? Why do we need it? Basically, it regulates land use for the purpose of advancing public health, safety, and welfare. It's a tool that we use to implement the comprehensive plan. The way some people describe it is like the comp plan is your constitution, and then your zoning and subdivision are all the laws that need to be consistent with that. This is also online, the zoning text you can find. Again, if you go to the home page, the blue tabs on the left, go to Village Ordinances. That'll bring up a link that you click that goes to our separate ordinance website. Scroll down to Chapter 325, that's the zoning ordinance text. The text is just one part of it. There's also a zoning map that tells which parcels are allocated to which district. That's on our homepage. Again, go to the blue Planning tab. And at the top of the next page that comes up will be a link to the zoning map. The zoning map that we have online, it's kind of an interactive GIS map that's put together by our engineering firm. So you can zoom around, find the parcel you're interested in, click it, and it'll tell you about the district. The zoning ordinance is very long and very complicated if you choose to take a look at it. A very brief recap on how it's organized. Every parcel is assigned to a zoning district. That's things like planned business or single-family residential. Within Article 3 of the ordinance, it tells you about the different factors that are regulated within each district, things like what uses are permitted, what's a conditional use, factors related to density or intensity, number of floors, floor area ratio, things like that. Setbacks are a big one. Each district either allows or prohibits various land uses. The land uses are covered in Article 4. It's kind of a second layer of regulations. So in addition to meeting the regulations of the district, you have to meet the regulations of the specific land use, which could be things like office or more specific, like light industrial or indoor commercial entertainment, which covers restaurants and things like that. A lot of the regulations specific to those uses have to do with parking. It could have to do with buffer yards if they're related to something that could be negatively impacted. Within the zoning ordinance, there are a few other processes that we'll have to deal with. One that'll come up most frequently is site plan review. Basically, any project that's not a single family or duplex house would come here for a site plan review. Some of the things we looked at when we do that, we make sure the project is meeting all the regulations. We're looking at health and safety issues, making sure streets, utilities, and other public facilities are adequate, looking at how stormwater and erosion is managed, traffic and parking issues, landscaping, and the appearance of the structures. Projects in the Commerce Park have an additional level of review. They have to go to the Architectural Review Committee because the Commerce Park has special covenants that are unique just to the Commerce Park. Another action that will likely come up while you're here is a conditional use permit. There are certain uses that are allowed by right in a district. Conditional uses are those that could, in some circumstances, negatively impact an adjacent property. So we have a special process for those that includes a public hearing, and those can be approved with conditions that'll help to address any negative impacts that could come up. Another process that's within the zoning district is planned unit developments. That's a special district where we, a specific project can have some additional flexibility related to the standards that are involved. That's usually done in exchange for a higher level of either aesthetic quality or higher levels of materials that'll impact the property value or certain amenities that they might provide to the public. So there's some negotiation involved. It's a more complicated process. There's more steps, but that's part of negotiating the regulations specific to a project. The zoning ordinance also includes chapters on landscaping, performance standards, which is things like parking, loading, noise. The sign ordinance is part of the zoning ordinance, and then there's a chapter just on the procedures and administration. Subdivision is a separate chapter. That's chapter 274 of the village ordinances. You can find that similar to finding the zoning ordinance. It regulates the dividing of larger parcels into smaller parcels. The other thing the subdivision ordinance does is establish the quality and standards for various public improvements, things like streets, sewers, stormwater. So when developers build those and then turn them over to the village, they're to a uniform quality and match what we're looking for. Basically, two processes for dividing land. One is platting. So when a neighborhood is called a subdivision, it's because of this process. It allows the subdivision of land into 5 or more parcels. There's 2 steps, a preliminary plat and a final plat. Both of those are reviewed by both the Plan Commission and the board. A smaller land division is a certified survey map. That's a subdivision that's creating less than 5 parcels, and that's just a 1-step process. In Wisconsin, cities and villages also have authority to review subdivisions outside their boundaries. In the case of a village, it's 1.5 miles outside your boundary. That area is called your extraterritorial jurisdiction, or sometimes called just ETJ. So there will be cases where someone wants to divide land either in the town of Sun Prairie or town of Cottage Grove. They would have to come here and get our approval as well. There's also something called extraterritorial zoning, or ETZ. It's easy to get the two confused, but they're actually quite different. ETZ is a cooperative zoning ordinance that's done between a city or village and a town. They have a joint committee. They have an ordinance specific to that area. We do not have that here. It's not terribly common, but it is a tool that's out there. Another topic you'll likely be hearing about is urban service areas. Simply, an urban service area is a defined area in and around the village where we're allowed to extend sewer service. The urban service area boundaries are approved ultimately by the DNR, but that's done upon recommendation from a regional planning commission, which in our case is CARPC, the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, though there have been examples lately where the DNR has approved requests that CARPC denied. So you cannot extend sewer infrastructure to an area that does not have urban service area. After an amendment is approved, the land also has to be brought into MMSD's service area. That's another step. It's not something the Plan Commission would get involved with. So what's the status of the village's urban service area? If you go look at the maps in the comp plan, you'll see it as a blue outline on many of those maps. CARPC has a formula where they determine what they feel is an appropriate amount of urban service area based on a 20-year planning window. The village is actually over its limit. CARPC's predecessor, the Dane County Planning Commission, had a different formula a decade or so ago. At that time, the village put a lot of land into the urban service area because it was under its limit. Eventually, CARPC was formed. They have a different formula. Now we're over our limit. Basically, what that means is if we want to add area to our urban service area, we'd probably have to take some undeveloped land that's in our area out. And that's something that could come up in the next year or so. We have some areas, in particular the land north of the freeway, that we may want to put into our urban service area, and we'd have to then go through the process of getting that approved by CARPC and also deciding what areas we would want to take out. Won't go into a lot of detail on the next couple of boxes here. We have 3 TIF districts in the village. One is the Commerce Park and some of the adjacent properties. One is mostly focused on the land right across the street from this building to the south, along with some of the frontage on N and BB. The third one is on the south side. It includes the older business park and then wraps around to include the 1855 building and some of the senior housing to the rear of that. Won't get into too much detail about our marketing efforts, other than to say if you have a lead on somebody that you think would be a good fit for the village, probably let me know. We have all kinds of information in various formats that we can get out to those people. The last slide here just asks a few questions about the future direction of the village. We don't necessarily need to discuss these or come up with answers for these right now, but they're issues that you're probably going to be thinking about as we go through the comp plan process the next couple of months. The first one, back in 1990, the village only had about 1,100 residents. Today it's got in excess of 6,000. So obviously that growth was very rapid in that era. Is that the kind of rate we still want, or do we want to slow things up a little bit? The second issue is looking at demographics in the village. It's several statistics that we'll look at again as we go through the comp plan process that show it's very family friendly, a lot of kids, a lot of 30 to 50-year-olds, but a dip in the population for 20 to 30-year-olds and the demographic over 50. So the question to think about there, do we want to continue to focus on sort of family-friendly development and the housing types that they would be interested in, or do we want to diversify the housing stock and try to fill in some of those demographic gaps? The third issue that I would see as being an important one is that land north of the freeway. It's identified on our comp plan as commercial and planned mixed use, but we probably want to work through this comp plan process to narrow down that vision a little bit. What do we really want to see up there? So that's the material I had. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I think Lee might have a few comments too about being a plan commissioner.
I'll keep mine brief, just to highlight a couple of things. One is that by virtue of being on the plan commission, you become a public official, and keep in mind that things that any type of record that's created, and a record is defined as any material on which is written, drawn, printed, spoken, visual, or electromagnetic information is recorded or preserved. So that pretty well covers the waterfront. The Wisconsin Supreme Court and the statutes are very candidly far behind on social media, but and at this point, personal records are not subject to an open record request, but if you have but if you write, for example, an email to other members of the Plan Commission, that could be subject to the open records law. You have to be careful about getting a conversation going if you have more than, for example, if you send out an email, just say, well, what do you think about this that's on the agenda? And you send it to everybody on the Plan Commission, and then someone answers and they send it to everybody on the Plan Commission. Very quickly you can have a potential open meetings law violation. So what you should do is, if you're sending an email, it should say do not reply unless you're only sending it to one other individual. But keep in mind that anything that's done and it's connected to the Plan Commission business could become an open record.
Or you could say in the email explicitly, this is intended as a one-way communication.
Right. I think the biggest thing that I want you to keep in mind is that you now sit in what's called a quasi-judicial or quasi-legislative capacity, which means that when someone comes before you, you ought to treat it like you're a judge, and you should be a blank slate, and you say, well, okay, let's look at the evidence that you present to us, subject to our applicable rules and regulations. That doesn't mean that you can't have your own personal opinion, but you should keep an open mind. And there's a league video that Pat and Kyle have sat through. Fred, you might have even seen it a long time ago. I don't think it's changed very much, but it's where someone says, well, frankly, I think your project is ridiculous and there's no possible way I'll vote for it. Well, you might think that. It's better to keep quiet about it, and from a legal point of view, we ask that you keep an open mind. And from a staff point of view, we'll try to say, well, here are the rules and regulations that we have, the comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, and we need to follow that. Also, in terms of just how the meeting is run, we don't stand on a lot of procedure. I like to call it Robert's Rules light. You make a motion then it gets seconded, then it can be debated. Pat's in control of the meeting. He's also in control of if we're here and we have a large audience, there would be, and people want to speak on it, then often we limit their speaking to 3 minutes. But we try to do that all the time so that people, sometimes there's one person, two people, but we try to adopt some rules and follow them. Fred, by 6:15, had already pointed out that there was a question about where the approval of minutes should be, and it is interesting that, I think I never have caught that before, but it's far down on the list for the Plan Commission. It's always on top of the list for other boards, committees, and commissions. So we'll make that change. That'll be about as deep as we get into Robert's rules, unless somebody gets out of order and then Pat just says, "Stop, enough, I've had it," which could happen too. So the open meeting law shouldn't be a big concern for you, but we can only talk about items that are on the agenda for action, and that's something that we try to make sure that we always do. So those are just some general rules. The Attorney General's Office puts out something called the Wisconsin Public Records Law. They also put out something called the Open Meetings Law, and I'm anticipating that these are going to be redone because these still have the old Attorney General. The new Attorney General will want to get his picture in. So once they are updated, I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of these. But that's just kind of a general overview from a legal point of view.
Discuss and consider public participation and approval process for the 2015 Comprehensive Plan Amendment.
I started talking about before, we are amending the comprehensive plan. Typically, we start that in January, and we're usually wrapping it up right around now. But again, given all the turnover that was happening, it just made sense to wait so we weren't getting a whole new crew midstream. So what you have in your packet is a outline of steps and dates that we would try to target for getting the process approved. I guess I would like to point out we don't necessarily have to wrap this up in mid-November. It should take as long as it takes to get a comp plan that we all believe in and are happy with. There's nothing magic about the dates. If you want to talk about one of these steps over a period of 2 months and it pushes everything back, that's fine. It's more important to get it right than to do it quickly. First date on here, June 10th, is what we're doing here tonight. We're approving the timeline and a public participation process. And that'll, at least part of that will come up in our next agenda item where we're looking at a couple of surveys that we'd like to put out there. When we come back next month, we'll take a look at some of the census data and other information that feeds the decisions we make in the comp plan. We'll probably take a look at the goals and objectives in the plan. And then after getting some input from you guys tonight about the survey questions, we'll finalize those next time around. We have an opportunity on July 10th, which is the Chamber of Commerce's Family Fun Night. They've offered us a booth at that, which we would like to use to solicit opinions about the comp plan and also to distribute flyers about where people can go to take these surveys. If anyone would like to volunteer to work at that booth, I'd be happy to have you.
Then Friday?
Yes, Friday night from 5 to 8, I believe.
Yeah, you put me down for that.
Okay. Sometime most likely in early August, we'd like to close the survey so we can start gathering that information. We'll take the survey results and talk to them with our Chamber of Commerce's Economic Development Committee. We'd also like to, I didn't get it on the sheet here, but we talked to some of the school district representatives. We'll talk to them at this time to get their input, and also the Community Development Authority. So at the August Plan Commission meeting, we'll look at the survey data, we'll take the input from all those other bodies, any input we got from the Family Fun Night booth, and talk about how that fits in and might cause us to change some of our goals and objectives in the plan. It's kind of a three-tiered hierarchy in the plan. There's goals, there's objectives, and then there's policies, which are actual action items the village would take to implement those goals and objectives. There's a lot of those. That's probably at least one meeting unto themselves to decide if we want to make any changes to those. October, I think we would look at the text as a whole, any map changes, and hopefully at that point we would have you guys approve a public hearing draft. That's something we would put on the website. We'd send it out. By statute, we have to send it out to adjacent municipalities, various other governmental entities. They have a 30-day period to provide any feedback they want to give to us. So then mid-November, we would have a public hearing. We usually do that as a joint meeting of the Plan Commission and the Village Board. May include the CDA in that joint meeting as well this time. It's a time open for the public to come in, make any comments they want to make. And then depending on the feedback you get at that meeting, if it's fairly minimal, then often the plan would just get approved that night. If there's a lot of feedback that we want to revisit and take another go around, we could make some edits and bring it back at a subsequent meeting. So I guess we're looking for approval of this process and timeline, but again, with the understanding that certain steps may take longer at your discretion if they need to.
So Aaron, I was just curious about the surveys themselves.
Yeah.
Have we issued these in the past?
Yeah, we'll talk in a little more detail on the next agenda item.
Okay, I'm stepping ahead, sorry.
Okay, but yeah, we did do, the questions that are in your packet are questions that we asked back in 2010.
So we have some history then.
Yeah.
Based on,
Yeah.
what was the survey return rate on those for the residents versus businesses? Do we know?
It was much better for the businesses. The chamber was involved in distributing those. We got, I think, about 130 business responses.
What was that percentage return rate?
They basically selected themselves to participate. So
Okay, so it was fairly high then. 'Cause-
Yeah, we didn't send it to every business in town.
Okay.
We
Okay.
put it out there on the web, and people chose to participate or not.
Okay. And as far
Um,
as residents then?
That was much lower. There was only about 40 or 50 respondents, so that's something, that's why we're doing this booth at the Family Fun Night. We may do a mailer with the chamber that would have the links to where the survey is. We'd like to get that, quite a bit higher.
So I was just trying to get an idea of kind of baseline versus where we want to achieve and what kind of numbers. And so obviously we have some work to do on the resident side, it appears.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you looked at, when we looked at the businesses, if we tried to be, a broad spectrum of businesses, so we didn't hit, primarily just retail versus, what little manufacturing we have here versus something else. Or, I'm just curious. I mean, if we had.
Yeah, I think the chamber membership is a pretty broad representation. I believe we also did send it specifically to Commerce Park businesses and other
Okay.
businesses that were not necessarily part of the chamber. So we would.
Well, over 100 respondents certainly covered a good squad then. Good.
So looking for a motion? Do you wanna-
I'll motion the estimated timeline be approved as recommended with subject to being able to amend if needed.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the ability to change the timeline if need be. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Great. Discuss and consider potential format and questions for internet-based survey of village residents and business owners for use in the comprehensive plan process.
Okay, so this is the surveys that we were just talking about. Again, they were done back in 2010. I think we'd like to keep at least some of the questions the same, so we were able to compare then to now. But there may be other issues that we want to explore, and that's kind of why we're talking about them tonight. Could be some questions in there that you don't think are relevant, and we can consider taking those up. We did present these to the Chamber of Commerce's Economic Development Committee. They had a little bit of feedback, some other issues they'd like to see. They were interested in maybe some questions about branding, how people sort of, what do they think about when they think about Cottage Grove, that kind of thing. And they were looking for some specific questions about benefits of a bike path to Madison, which is something that's in the works. And to what extent businesses would make use of additional meeting spaces or hotel rooms in the village. And again, we'll try to publicize this at the Family Fun Night. We've talked to the chamber about doing a mailing. They were thinking about doing one anyway in a time period that would work with publicizing this. So again, there were 2 different surveys, one that went out to businesses, one that went out to residents. The businesses, the kind of questions we were asking, how big is your business, both in terms of square footage and number of employees? What percentage of your workers live in Cottage Grove? Do you rent or own your space? How long have you been in your space? How long have you been in the village? Is your business growing, steady, declining? What percentage of your customers would you estimate live in Cottage Grove?
What about including businesses in adjacent communities?
I think that kind of happened naturally because the chamber has a lot of town businesses as well. I think maybe even some east side businesses participate in that.
So do we have a way of then differentiating those 2 in the data? So in other words, so you're not, there may be certain things that are skewed because the business is not located in Cottage Grove.
We could add that question.
Well, that's the point, Fred. Exactly.
We could ask that specifically. We do have a question in here, where is your business located?
Okay.
So that helps define it as well. And with the survey, we used SurveyMonkey last time we did this. I think we'll do that again. And that allowed us to do some cross-tabulation where you could look at how people who answered a question one way answered other questions. So we can kind of what you're saying, see how businesses on BB answered a question versus businesses in the Commerce Park.
Do we indicate in the survey this is confidential information, or at least their specific information?
Well, it's anonymous, right?
I don't see it on here. That's why I asked.
I think
It
It is
is
anonymous unless they choose not to. If they choose not to, then technically it's public record.
Right.
We did this in collaboration with the chamber last time. So they had a few questions that they wanted us to ask. And one of them was whether you wanted more information about the chamber, in which case they would have to put in their information.
So that may be something that we want to make sure is clear on the survey for the benefit of those filling this survey out. And I would say the same goes for residents.
Has the listing agents for some of our land been involved in any of this process?
In developing the questions, or
Or getting some information similar to what we're trying to obtain through the survey? Or have they been reached out to kind of get involved?
I guess not for anything that's broad. We'll do that for specific properties sometimes. But, if that's information that you think could be compiled fairly easily, it might be worth doing that. I guess just to finish going through the questions that we have in here, looking at best or worst times of day for your business, best or worst days of the week, whether they're planning to add or reduce jobs over the next either year or 2 to 3 years, any plans to expand or relocate, where is the business located, how they would rate various factors related to conducting business in the village, reading types of land uses as to whether they think that would add or detract from the business climate. What's the best thing you think could happen to your neighborhood? Worst thing? What types of advertising they use, and then whether they're a chamber member, why they are, why they aren't, and would you like more information on that? The resident survey, in this case, in the 2010 survey, it did have kind of a business focus. We may want to broaden that this time around to other issues. So what percentage of your purchases do you do at various types of establishments within the village? What types of establishments would you like to add to the village? What factors would increase your patronage of businesses within the village? Rating various factors. How often do you attend various village events? Where do you work? When you're shopping outside the village, what factors are influencing your decision to do so? How often do you frequent various other shopping areas in the Madison area? How often do you attend various Madison area events? And where did you hear about the survey? Some of the input we got from the chamber, some of the members were interested in maybe broadening that out again into branding issues, how people see the village. The chamber's marketing committee, on the other hand, recommended that we keep it more focused on one issue, either branding or economic development or whatever, but it can get a little bit unwieldy in their view if there's too many questions about too many different things.
Is there any reason we wouldn't throw this survey out to the town as well? I mean, they probably shop and dine and do things in the village. It's might be worth knowing what they think. There's still a fair number of residents there that.
There's certainly nothing stopping them from filling it out. If we do a mailer with the chamber, I believe that would go out to the town.
Okay.
I assume there'll be town residents at the Family Fun Night. We could put in a request to the town clerk over there if they want to put something on their website. That's something we can talk about. Are there any issues you think we're missing here? Or?
No, I'd just like to see us include the town. And I'd say, have to say Cottage Grove resident versus village town. Let's try and make it, one community trying to, how do we make the community better for everybody? I mean, they're spending money here like we're spending money in the town, both, what business there. It would help to know what everybody's thinking.
Share the data.
Yeah, what we're, I mean, if they want some, we can share with them and say, are there some questions you want to put on there? Just, I mean, we've got close to what, 10,000 between the two? It's, we need to, we're one, well, we're separated by boundaries, but we're still one community, so it's trying to bridge that, I think, would help make them, because they're an important part of the economy for us as well, I'm sure. I don't need to look and say.
Cottage Grove communities.
Yeah, because I don't need to look and say, I'm not going to shop there, it's in the village, I'll go over here instead. I think, everybody thinks it's, I think it would be helpful, just to help, mending fences as well, trying to get their input, and it is important to us as well, as them, I think, as far as, going down the road in the future. Any comments for you guys? Well, we'll go to number 9, comments from commission members.
Well,
There wasn't a motion for that.
there is no action
We're just
required.
looking for feedback at this point, and then we'll
Right.
finalize them at the next meeting.
That's it, okay.
Put them online.
I'm for the word amendment now.
Okay.
Does anybody want to discuss it all? Don't feel you have to.
And one announcement, on Thursday, June 25th at 7 o'clock, the Dane County Parks Department is having a public meeting for their McCarthy County Park Master Plan process. That'll be held at the Town of Sun Prairie Town Hall. So if you want to attend and see what they're doing, it's some cool plans for the park up there.
What time?
7.
So- Number 10, any future agenda items?
One thing we'd like to bring up, the folks who are working on the land across the street, Horizon Group, they submitted a revised plan to me yesterday, and I talked to them a little bit when they found out there's been a lot of turnover on the plan commission. They'd like to come back again with their concept plan to get feedback, from this group as opposed to the last group. They were hoping they wouldn't have to wait till July to do that. I guess we'd like to see if you guys are okay with scheduling a special plan commission meeting. They were hoping for either Tuesday the 16th, Thursday the 18th. But we want to make sure we can get a quorum if we're going to do it.
Yeah, how does that go against other committee? I don't know what's on Tuesday and Thursdays. What do you have for?
I have to look at this.
Yeah.
I think this is the kind of thing we can do via email, right? Just trying to get them, or not.
Sure, start with open law violation. That's how you get it out of the way.
I had no part of that.
Well,
No, you can send out, I mean, if you're responding to Aaron, if he sends out and says what works better for you, you can certainly respond to that.
But respond to Aaron,
Yeah.
not to the whole
Just
group.
to set
Aaron
up a
will-
meeting,
right.
Aaron,
Right.
yeah.
reply to, not all.
Yeah, Aaron would, cover it all and get back to everyone with the best time.
Great.
So I can just write to you individually, then you won't accidentally.
So they want this next week.
I guess
That was their
I guess
hope.
I'd like to know why we have to hold a special meeting for them. It's their choice to make another presentation.
We don't have to.
Yeah.
That's,
They have the land under contract for a certain amount of time. I think they just like to get feedback before they go too far along with their engineering and things of that.
Well, I guess something from the last one.
well, so I would need a lot of background before I could even make an informed decision.
Well, they're
There
gonna
won't be a
provide you
decision.
with
It
information.
would just be they'd be
Right.
sending you concept to get you up to date.
There'll be no action.
Right.
I understand that, but they're gonna be looking for action in July is probably what they're trying to do here.
I don't know if they'll be able to turn it around that quickly, but sometime during the summer. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure, just in the beginning.
The drawings they had here that night, they were here, have they made some final decision what it's gonna look like?
Or
Not final, they've changed it.
Okay. I'm not thrilled with having a special one, but I'm not against it either. What do you guys, what's everybody think here? Let's talk. First, we gotta make sure we have a quorum. I guess that's the first thing that's gonna have to be. Why don't we?
It's been a difficult parcel, obviously, to have a legitimate inquiry on it. It may be a good idea to be
Well, and
accommodating.
Unfortunately, we're missing 2 people tonight as well.
Right.
So,
well, I don't mind coming to a special meeting. Doesn't matter.
I mean, I guess if you need to know my schedule, I can tell you the 16th doesn't work.
What, the 18th?
The 18th would work.
And the 18th doesn't work for me.
Or if you. So the other question is, how are you on the 18th?
Could be the following week too, if that works.
I'd have to check all the committees and
Yeah,
boards and
that's-
stuff.
It's third week's always got.
You want to email everybody?
Yeah.
The different days?
Yeah, let's do that. We don't know sure if Rob would be there. Would put us 3 down just to.
Yeah.
And Fred,
they
we can ask them, what their timeline is then,
Okay.
when they come and how quickly they're looking to move.
I'm sure they come in and want to show us some ideas and come back on the 6th whenever the next July one is, July
The 8th.
Depends how quickly they
Eighth.
can turn it around, I guess.
Yeah. Well, see if let's see push back an extra week. See if the 25th will work for them. That's an extra week just to give us time to them to get. Send the email out and whatever he responds for availability. That's how we'll work it. Yeah, we have more than just 4 people there. All right. Any other future agenda items?
That's the one we know for sure.
All right. The number 11, approve the minutes of the planning commission from May 13th, 2015.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the May 13th Planning Commission meeting as presented.
I guess I better second that one that was there, so I'll second. And what's further discussion? And Lee, you can explain if they all know if they're.
Yeah, you're all eligible to vote. I know that sometimes people choose not to, but you would be eligible to vote on the minutes, and I think otherwise we'd only have 2 people that were actually at the meeting.
Yeah. So with that, with first and a second, all in favor of approving the minutes from May 13th, 2015, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now who wants the next one?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, motion adjourned, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.